The time is 10:02, and we are going to get started with this Interstate Bridge Replacement Executive Steering Group meeting. Again, it is 10:02, now 10:03. I'm Millicent Williams, and I will serve as the facilitator for today's meeting. We are going to go around the room and introduce folks, but before we do that, I'd like to make sure that we run through the ground rules for the meeting. If we get advanced to the next slide.
And I'm really sorry, this is Mary, I'm the interpreter, and I do have to interrupt for 1 second. The other interpreter is sick, and so it will be just me, and I may bow out. I've been told to do that, so.
Thank you so much, Mary. Hopefully we won't necessarily be on for the full 2 hours, but folks, be mindful of that as we're speaking, that we have one interpreter and without a handoff. So thank you. All right, so I'm going to read through the instructions as we always do. Closed captions are available in English and in Spanish. English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow the link below, which is https://ibr.news/captions in both English and Spanish in a separate browser window. To access closed captions, first, you go to the bottom middle of your screen. You should see a menu of options. If you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen. Click on the CC icon and a separate window with captions will appear. A few participation tips. We encourage panelists to turn on your video to the extent that that's possible. We ask that you please keep your audio on mute when you're not speaking. Before speaking, please state your name and affiliation to help attendees identify who's talking. And if you experience technical difficulties, please contact program staff at 360-329-6744. A few ground rules. We're going to honor the agenda. We're going to listen to understand and ask questions to clarify. We'll be hard on the problems and soft on the people. We will address interests and seek common ground, and we'll provide a balance of speaking time. Our agenda for today is as follows. We're in the first portion of the agenda, which is the welcome and acknowledgements, agenda review, and then partner updates. We'll have an update from our program administrator, Greg Johnson. We will then have an overview of the environmental process. We will open the floor for public comment. Then we'll have closing statements and confirmation of meeting dates and upcoming topics. By 12 o'clock, the meeting will be adjourned. So now we will go around the horn and ask that each of our participants, state your name to make sure that folks know who's talking. And then we ask that you provide for us an update. I'm going to call on you according to the roster that we have in front of us. And I do acknowledge that there are several alternates that are serving in the stead of the ESG member. So from the Oregon Department of Transportation, we would have normally Director Chris Strickler, but we're pleased that the alternate, the Office of Urban Mobility Director, Brendan Finn, is with us. Brendan.
Yeah, thanks, Millicent, and thanks, everybody. No real updates here, just an expression of gratitude to the partners here, all the efforts that are being put forward to move this program forward. So thank you all.
Thank you, Brendan. Now from the Washington State Department of Transportation, in the stead of Secretary Millar, we have Southwest Region Administrator Carly Francis. Carly.
Good morning. This is Carly Francis. Just expressing my appreciation for everybody's work to move forward the modified locally preferred alternative among partners. It's such a great step, so greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Carly. From the City of Portland, we're pleased that Commissioner Joanne Hardesty is with us this morning. Commissioner Hardesty.
Good morning. I was just checking to see if it was still morning. I just got off a call.
It is. It's been a long one already.
Good morning. I actually wanted to give a shout out to Metro Council President Lynn Peterson for the fabulous celebration that she hosted at her house. because of the milestone that we collectively had reached around the preferred modified option, modified preferred option, whatever the acronym stands for.
Locally preferred alternative.
It was wonderful to actually have a social opportunity to just be able to celebrate where we are. And we all know we got a long way to go, but hallelujah, we actually got this part done.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. From the City of Vancouver, as I mentioned previously, Mayor Ann McInerney-Ogle is not going to be joining us this morning, and in her stead, we're pleased that City Manager Eric Holmes has joined us. Would you like to share any sentiments?
Good morning. No updates from City of Vancouver. Did want to join other colleagues from across the region on the call, expressing gratitude not only for all the work that's happened to date, but also the continued informal engagement that has been happening across the region, even as the IBR program shifts into its next phase of work. So I appreciate that and look forward to the rest of the meeting.
Thank you so much, Eric. From the Southwest Washington Regional Transportation Council, or the RTC, we have Executive Director Matt Ransom. Matt.
Yeah, good morning. Matt Ransom, RTC. It's great to see everybody. And I think an aspirational comment I would have is maybe sometime soon in person. So thanks again. Glad to be here.
Looking forward to that time. We're pleased that Metro Council President Lynn Peterson is with us. She will not be able to join on camera, but she does want to express and provide an update and express any sentiments regarding the program. So President Peterson.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you all of you for all your time and energy working together. And I think Matt's comments were really on target. We getting together informally and building the muscle that we have been working on together is really important to be able to make other decisions in the future because our two sides of the river are inextricably linked together. And I'm looking forward to the other components of making this region great. Thanks.
Thank you so much, President Peterson. From TriMet, we're pleased that Public Affairs Director J.C. Vanetta has joined us in the stead of GM Sam Dessou. J.C.
Good morning, and I want to second all of the good comments around us getting to an LPA. It's a huge momentous occasion, and so thanks for everyone's work. Just a quick little update from TriMet. We are opening our brand new FX BRT line on Saturday. A celebration on Saturday. Grand opening on Sunday, the new service. It's not every day that we open up a new transit service. Sean at C-Tran, they do it every day up there in Vancouver. This is our first, and we are looking to expand this mode in other areas. So looking forward to a party because we need something to celebrate. So thank you.
Thanks so much, JC. And good morning, CEO Sean Donahue from C-Tran. I know that I always comment on your flags. Today is the first day of Hispanic Heritage Month, so kudos to you for consistently acknowledging members of your community in visible, tangible ways. But that's not what we're here to discuss. I want to pass the floor over to you for you to provide any updates that you have from C-Tran. Welcome.
Well, thank you and good morning. I don't really have an update from C-Tran today. I was going to use my 10 minutes to throw a plug out to my friends at TriMet. I'm extremely excited to see what FX is going to bring on Saturday. I'm heading over to the event myself with a few of our staff. And I got to tell you, I think it's going to be one of the most successful bus rapid transit systems in North America. Just the way that the TriMet team approached it and the work that their employees did on Division Street is pretty amazing. So I'm really excited about it. And I'm happy for my friends, Sam and JC and the crew over there. I know they're going to knock this one out of the park, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Thanks so much, Sean. And now we'd like to hear from the Port of Portland. Executive Director Curtis Robinhold is with us.
Thanks, Millicent. Good morning, everyone. Nothing to add there. Also really excited about FX, just what it brings to the city and the region. Really excited for y'all at TriMet and look forward to seeing you this weekend. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And now from the Port of Vancouver, CEO Juliana Marler.
Good morning, everyone. Just a brief update. If you had not had a chance to come over across the bridge, you'll see the landscape's a little bit different at our Terminal 1 space, just to the west of the bridge. We have fully deconstructed the Red Lion Hotel, so that is looks a little bit different down there. But we look forward to replacing that dock structure and building a future public marketplace in that space. So pretty excited to see that continued progress down in that space. And of course, continue to appreciate the collaboration on this project. Thank you.
That is tremendously exciting. Thank you so much, CEO Marler. Now, I will mention that one of our CAD co-chairs is going to be joining us late. We'll give her the opportunity to provide any comments or updates when she joins. That's Lynn Valenter. But we do have one of our CAD co-chairs with us, Mr. Ed Washington. Mr. Washington, is there anything that you'd like to share?
I think I've already shared with you that my discuss about my coffee, but other than that, I don't have anything to share other than to say that it was just a pleasure to get together at President Lynn Peterson's house to celebrate the LPA, and it was just wonderful to meet people that you see on the screen, but not in person. So, and also the excellent work that Greg is doing in keeping this thing together. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Mr. Washington. So we are going to now transition to hear an update from our program administrator. I will mention that there are going to be several components to this meeting that are going to be of importance, but nothing that we're going to be voting on today. We want to make sure that people are clear that we want to make sure we're providing updates about how the program is moving forward, that we meet periodically. We will not be meeting at the same frequency as we did previously. We'll talk about that later in the meeting as well. The extent to which you all extended yourselves to make sure you are available to be in meaningful conversations as we advance this work was greatly appreciated. Not that we want to give you a break, but the pace of the program is different. The phase of the program is different. And so we're going to talk about that, what that means for you and your teams, and how we're going to be engaging you over the next several months. So I'm going to stop talking and hand the floor over to our program administrator, Greg.
Commissioner Hardesty has a hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner. Yes,
that's okay. Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Millicent. I just wanted to make sure that we were mindful of only having one interpreter. And I just wanted to know when she will need a break. So we may need to build in more breaks at this meeting than we traditionally do, just because we don't want to wear out our interpreter, our fabulous interpreter.
Thank you so much. In fact, what we can do, because I believe we will have a little bit of wiggle room in the agenda, is after Administrator Johnson gives his update, we can take a 5-minute break so that folks can refresh and then come back for the NEPA presentation. How does that sound for everyone? All right.
I'm more concerned about our interpreter than us. We all can hang. I just didn't want our interpreter to be, to have some time to regroup.
Understood. Thank you so much, Commissioner Hardesty. Appreciate your acknowledgement of that. And I'm glad we're able to identify a solution. So, great.
All right. Well, once again, good morning, everybody. And I'd like to also echo the thanks for the efforts that were put in by yourselves and by your staff members to get to the milestone that we reached back in July. That was excellent. And also President Peterson's hosting of the team was fantastic. So I'd like to acknowledge that I've been running across partners on my walk to work. As many of you know, I lived the first 15 months in the city of Portland, and I moved over to Vancouver as I promised the partners that I would see the bridge from both sides and both community perspectives. So I am currently living in Vancouver, and on my walk to work, I've ran into Eric Holmes, I've ran into the mayor, I've ran into Juliana and her staff as they were showing off the waterfront. So it's good. I see you guys in person, and it's a good thing. So let's go to the next slide, please. So you've seen this slide before. This is our program schedule. We are currently working on a more detailed integrated schedule that will show some more detailed dates and show once again if what happens if we don't hit certain milestones and what that does to our schedule. But right now, this is our schedule. We are still on point. We are still in the environmental phase. The big green dot in the middle of 2022 is our milestone for the modified locally preferred alternative. And you can see that that environmental box extends out into 2024. So that is, this is the time period that we have set aside 2 years to reach a record of decision, which means we have a lot of work to do between now and then. So this supplemental environmental impact statement process will be very detailed. We will have a number of prescribed meetings that are part of the NEPA process, but we will also continue to have ad hoc meetings to keep people informed of where the program is at and where we're going. So one of the important things that happened since the last time we met is that we did submit for a federal grant under the IIJA program for the Big Bridge Grant Program. So we have submitted that back in early August, which we submitted for both a planning grant as well as the construction grant. Now the planning grant is for $1 million. It's just to supplement some of the work that is being done. But the construction grant we submitted for over $700 million. So we were encouraged by our federal partners to get that grant in to demonstrate our interest in the program. So a lot of good things going on. We are working on 2 key things that we're going to come back to you in our next meeting, and that is an economic impact analysis that will be tailored towards the work that we have described in the locally preferred alternative. And we will be coming back to you with in late November, early December, a revised cost estimate based on the work that has been done with the locally preferred alternative. This will take into account some of the inflationary costs that we are seeing across the country, as well as material escalation costs. So you will, that's going to be an important milestone for us to show where we are at cost-wise with this program. We are still looking to hit construction start in late 2025, early 2026. We will be in this time frame. You see the big blue box, which is design. We will continue to work on design elements for the program and getting more detail to your staff and to you, so you can see where the program is going and some of the analysis that we are doing. So let's go to the next slide, please. So once again, this is what we are studying in the supplemental environmental impact statement. We are committed to studying a partial interchange on Hayden Island. Folks are looking at the complications of this. So we will be digging into more detail that wasn't available during the locally preferred alternative. So we will be getting more detail and seeing the impacts and determining what a footprint on Hayden Island will look like. On the transit side of things, we have agreed that light rail up to Evergreen is where we are moving forward. So you will start seeing us looking at more detail around that and looking at where we are with station locations and starting to look at preliminary station design, as well as tackling the question of park and rides and where they will be, if there will be, what size, and questions of that nature. So one of the key questions that we will be delving into in a deep and meaningful way is the auxiliary lane question. Right now, we have agreed to take one auxiliary lane into study for the supplemental environmental impact statement. And our commitment is to put every technical bell and whistle that we can to make sure that one auxiliary lane in each direction will suffice going out into the future. So that is what our team is currently working on. We will be bringing presentations to you as we develop more information. The variable rate tolling, we will need eventually to have permission from the Washington State Legislature to pursue tolling on this bridge from the Washington side. We currently have that through the Oregon Transportation Commission and the Oregon Legislature. So we have to get a similar permission from the legislature in Washington. So, but we know that it will be variable rate tolling to help pay for the bridge, but also to help change habits in this corridor to make sure that we are looking at demand management to move people where there is alternatives to alternative modes to cross the river. So next slide, please. So this once again is a view from downtown Vancouver, showing the light rail alignment running in the I-5 corridor. So we're still meeting and talking about impacts to Fort Vancouver. We are working with the tribal nations to make sure that they are up to speed on what we are proposing and that we are not having undue impacts on cultural and archaeological resources in the area. So let's go to the next slide, please. So this is a new slide that we have not shown. So you're getting the first time a draft example. And once again, I want to stress this is just an example of a potential crossing configuration. What you see is 3 through lanes in each direction. Across the bridge, you see an auxiliary lane for folks who are getting on and off the freeway to not have to impact the through lanes of traffic. And what you see below is the light rail under one bridge, and you see the biking and walking and pedestrian facility under the second bridge. So once again, this is only a concept. We have not made a decision on configuration, on bridge type. We know that aesthetics are important to this region, so we're looking at different bridge types that will achieve the aesthetic value at a cost that is going to be acceptable to the partners. So this is something that we will be working on. We will have subcommittees that will be looking at these type of issues, and we will be bringing these to your staff members as well as back to this body for final acceptance of some of the concepts. So once again, we're working on the trade-offs of the different river crossing concepts. We know that we have shown you a stacked alignment that puts one bound on top of the other. And one of the problems that, technical problems that we are running into is to unstack those bridges. We would have to encroach into Fort Vancouver, which is a red line. So we are We are trying to look at different concepts that have the least impact and the most compact footprint. So this, once again, I want to stress, this is only a concept example. We will be developing more in the upcoming weeks and months to show you other possibilities. Next slide, please. So there are other things that that we have been working on since we last met. As many of you know, we received 165 conditions from your boards and councils that we have to address. So our team has been working diligently to categorize them and to make sure that we have answers to all of the questions and conditions that have been posed to us. So we are diligently working on those things. We're talking to your staff members to make sure we have the complete understanding of what those conditions are. And we will be coming back to you in one form or another to let you know where those things have landed. One of the other things we are working on is we're putting the framework together for a community benefits discussion. We know that this is something that has been expressed a need for on both sides of the river. So we will be looking at that and putting together committees to serve community benefits as we move forward. One of the questions that we also frequently get is, where are we at with the U.S. Coast Guard? So our conversations with the Coast Guard continue. As a matter of fact, Ray Mabey, our deputy administrator, just met with the Coast Guard last Friday. It was a very good and cordial conversation. We are still demonstrating to them that we can mitigate for the less than 1% of river traffic that would need a higher bridge than 116 feet. So we're still working on that. We have a reasonable runway to get to a Coast Guard permit. We will not need that permit until sometime in late 2025, early 2026. So that work is still ongoing. Just recently, myself and a couple of our team members attended a Federal Transit Administration National Construction Conference, talking about issues related to funding, risk, and various other issues on large transit construction projects across the country. Although we are not in construction, we took diligent notes. 3 members of the TriMet team attended, and we also had CTRAN was one of the presenters on projects they're working on the Mill Plain Bus Rapid Transit project. So we have a number of takeaways from that conference. We are putting together a presentation. Jeb Doran and myself will be putting that together, and we'll be coming back to you to share with you some of the key information that we learned. Very, very worthwhile. We had an opportunity to visit a Chicago Transit Administration or Chicago Transit Authority active construction program, which was tremendously interesting and informative of some of the things that we want to do as far as construction methods and some of the work that they were doing with the community, with community benefits. And finally, on the federal funding front, we've talked about our application for the bridge grant. We will be, if we receive our funding go ahead from the Oregon legislature, that will give us the ability to apply for The second grant, which is a mega project grant, which we will once again be asking for over $700 million from the federal government to help fund this project. So we are looking for every opportunity for federal funding. There are some other programs that we will be looking at. We will be looking to partner with the ports to possibly defray some of the costs at both Mill Plain and Marine Drive, because there are some grants that are looking to make sure that ports are formally addressed in moving traffic in and out of their facilities. So a number of good things going on that front. So with that, I will stop and take any questions or concerns that you may have. So I think our next slide is the question. Oh, one more slide. We have the grant opportunities that I was speaking of. So if you look at the bottom, there are some of the other grant opportunities that exist that we will be going after. Once again, that fourth bullet under the third bullet is advanced transportation and construction management technology deployment. Once again, we're looking to make this one of the smartest corridors, if not the smartest corridor in the US. So we will be looking at that program very heavily to help deploy smart technology in the corridor. We've had a conversation with Senator Merkley's office about the potential of having a smart highway that can demonstrate charging capabilities as you are driving at freeway speed. So we will be looking for those type of smart type of infrastructure demonstrations and deployments. So I think that's my last slide. It is.
It is your last slide. Are there any questions or comments for Greg? I see Commissioner Hardesty's hand is raised. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Greg. I really appreciate that very thorough update. My question really had to do with your very last point. If you start talking electrification, you're talking about significantly increasing the cost. And so I hope that that is a decision that we'll be having the pros and cons conversation at this table before any proposal is actually moved forward.
So when you say electrification, you're talking about accommodation of electric vehicles?
Well, what I just heard you say was, wouldn't it be great if people who could afford electric vehicles could charge it as they were going across the bridge? And yeah, that would be great. But 90% of the people I know will never be able to afford an electric car. And so if we're going to be increasing the cost significantly so that people who can afford electric cars can charge it on their way to work, I think we need to have a conversation about that, because that's an equity issue that would severely impact some populations at the expense of others.
Okay, understood. We will make sure that that issue is thoroughly vetted, both in this body and in the equity advisory group.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Thanks, Greg. I see Brendan's hand was raised.
Yeah, just a quick comment. It was nice to see in that illustration a bus on shoulder there, and because I know C-Tran has been kind of a national leader in that endeavor. So I know they got pilots on Glenn Jackson as well. So it was just a good thing to see there, and some props to C-Tran. They've been, like I said, a leader of bus on shoulder, a great use of infrastructure to promote transit.
So I agree, Sean. Sean has been a tremendous partner in pressing bus on shoulder and the efficiency of it going across the river. So that is one of the ways we hope to make sure that we have efficient bus and transit going between the two communities.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions? Well, as we indicated before Greg's presentation and at the recommendation of Commissioner Hardesty, or the acknowledgement of the limitations that we have with our ASL interpreters, we're going to take a 5-minute break. It's 10:37. We'll take an 8-minute break, 7-minute break, and come back at 10:45. Not soon enough, though, because I just spilled coffee all over my keyboard, so it'll give me the chance to clean that up. And we'll see you back here in 7 minutes. Thanks, everybody. Hi, Chris. I see you're there. We'll queue up everybody in just a minute. Have one more minute to re-engage. As we wait for everyone to return, I do want to acknowledge the image that you see on the screen right now. It's an announcement for an equity roundtable that's going to be coming up in just a couple of weeks on September 28th. You'll be able to watch that via YouTube Live. We're excited about the conversation, and we're going to be talking about why equity matters in infrastructure. There are any number of ways that infrastructure helps to support communities, but it is important that we always keep in the backs of our minds as folks who are administering large programs, as people who are designing cities and planning for the future, that we need to think about everyone, not just someone. And that we think about differing perspectives and the impacts and interpretations of the work that we do in support of community. So I'm excited about the conversation. It will again be taking place via YouTube Live and Zoom, but you can watch it from the IBR channel, which I've actually never used, but I'm able to catch things in other ways. But that's the way that we're making sure that the public has the information. A lot has been shared over the past couple of years about the IBR program, and we do want to make sure that we're continuing in the conversation and keeping it in the forefront of our minds. Equity is as an issue as it relates to the bridge. All righty. So we are now at 10:45, and we're pleased to be joined by Chris Regan, who is our environmental manager or environmental lead for the IBR program. He's going to be talking about advancing the modified LPA into the NEPA phase. And so I know that we've had lots of conversations about all of the acronyms and all of the things that are behind the acronyms. And we've also talked about what the NEPA process looks like, but this is going to provide for us the opportunity to have a little bit deeper dive, greater understanding and information about when you'll be able to provide your inputs into the process. So with no further ado, Chris.
Thanks, Millicent. Really appreciate it. Really glad to be here today with all of you, especially to talk about something that I've spent a lifetime working through, the National Environmental Policy Act. I was going to open up with great celebration for the work that you did getting us the modified LPA. I think that was covered very well by most of you in the introductions. So I'm going to jump into the thing that really excites me about NEPA. It's a procedural law. I'm going to talk about process. So hopefully all of you will be as excited as me as we go forward and talk a little bit, do a little bit of a recap of what we've done previously with this group and how it relates to pushing us forward. So next slide, please. So as I guess another element of this, of the National Environmental Policy Act is all the acronyms. And so we will be going through and talking about a number of things. But to start us out kind of with these background important foundational elements, you know, the National Environmental Policy Act is over 50 years old. It has a long history with a lot of experience that we can draw from to make sure that we get this right. The most important thing about NEPA is that it is an action forcing law. That means that anytime a federal agency takes an action, they have to ensure that they comply with the National Environmental Policy Act. And there's two specific elements of NEPA that are important. One, it ensures that when agencies take action, they have to review environmental impacts, and significant environmental impacts must be reviewed through an environmental impact statement. The second thing is it requires that the proposed action, the environmental impacts are put together and the public has an opportunity to provide comments before the action moves forward to decision making. Next slide. So the work that we've been doing within the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program, next slide, please, it really is moving us forward. So the thing that's really important about NEPA as well is because it forces analysis for federal actions, those include federal regulatory actions as well. And so we oftentimes talk about a NEPA umbrella. A number of the decisions that our regulators are going to make on our program will also fall into the NEPA analysis and be captured with it as we move forward and available for that public comment as well. So next slide, please. So we've done a lot of work in the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program with our executive steering group and with all of our partners to help set us up for the work that we need to do for IBR. We are in a supplemental environmental impact statement process. The work that was done before had over 10 years of analysis that led us to a Columbia River crossing. Our lead federal agencies developed a record of decision for that. And the work that we've been doing over the past couple of years is really building on the analysis, looking at what those past decisions were and what has changed since those past decisions to define how best to move forward with the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. We arrived at a modified LPA, and now our machine is starting to hum, it's starting to move. And we have over 100 people that are setting up conversations about what are the technical aspects of moving forward with a modified LPA and how it connects to other elements so that we can establish a corridor-wide footprint and begin that detailed analysis. The analysis is going to be defined in a supplemental draft environmental impact statement. And that really is at a 5% design level. And so it's important to understand that we made some decisions about the modified LPA. We've been talking about how do we connect that. But we are so early in the design process that there will be changes that occur as we move forward. The important part of our NEPA process is that we define a footprint to start looking at these specific technical elements of impacts so that we can document those and provide those for public comment to address in our supplemental final environmental impact statement. Now the final should be at a 15% design. And to think that we are done after the final, done designing and we're refining and making sure that we get things right and we continue to minimize impacts is something that just doesn't happen, especially on a program this big. Our supplemental draft gets us to 5, our final gets us to 15, and we will continue that refinement with partner input, public comments, and other studies, as well as identifying those specific mitigation commitments that we are going to move forward. So next slide, please. Part of the team's work right now is to focus on elements of the environment. And so we have a number of extremely technical reports. Now, these reports were part of the previous analysis that was done. And so we're picking these up, looking at how things changed and what needs to be modified as we move forward into the draft supplemental EIS. There's a long list here that will have to address those changes and be documented within the environmental impact statement. When we get to the draft environmental impact statement, it will address all of these elements of the environment and be provided to the public to issue comments on the analysis that we've done. Next slide, please. And so EISs have a typical structure for analysis. And again, we have over 50 years of experience with this. Chapter 1 talks about the purpose and need. Some of the early conversations that we had with ESG were around purpose and need, and we confirmed the previous purpose and need. Also developed some desired outcomes and talked about the role of climate and equity. Our chapter, our supplemental draft EIS, will talk about purpose and need. It will talk about the modified LPA and how it connects in chapter 2. We will dive into existing conditions and the analysis that we've done on environmental consequences and how to offset those with mitigation in chapter 3. Administrator Johnson talked about the financial analysis that is coming up for discussion with ESG. That is chapter 4 in our EIS. We also need to look at the impacts to recreation and resource land as a component of the Department of Transportation's analysis, and they call it a 4F evaluation. That's how do we impact recreation resource lands, and how do we ensure that we do our best to minimize those impacts. And then finally, we're going to talk about public involvement and tribal consultation that has occurred leading up to the draft environmental impact statement. An important part of this is to recognize that we are going to evaluate 2 alternatives. There's always a no-build alternative, and then we are going to have the alternative of the modified LPA and those things that connect it. So those will be compared against each other to assess what are the environmental consequences of taking the action of approving the modified LPA. Can't stress enough, our design is conceptual. This is really early in the design process, but it does provide that footprint. It'll provide general alignments, location of transportation facilities, and we will take comments and refine that and continue to refine that with our partners as we move forward. It also is going to describe both impacts and benefits. So we are going to say, you know, what are the good things and what are consequences, and how do we ensure that as we make this decision, we've thought this through, we understand the impacts, and we're doing the best to provide the best solution for our region. This discussion is a mix of quantitative and qualitative analysis. So it's important that we get the narrative, the story right, and that we provide an opportunity for that public comment. Finally, our EIS is going to identify mitigation, proposed measures that we're going to use to address unavoidable adverse impacts to lessen the consequences of the action that we're taking. Next slide, please. And for the second part of the stool here, second leg here of the stool, the supplemental draft will be provided for public comment. This is a huge part of the process. The IBR program has done very good with reaching out to the public and getting us to this point, and we are going to continue this through the NEPA process. The public comment period is going to, or the draft EIS is going to be published and posted on our IBR program website. It's going to, where our target is to get that out summer of 2023 and open it up for the formal NEPA comment period. We're going to have a lot of different ways that individuals can submit comments, online comment forms, emails and letters directly, and we're going to have opportunity for public hearings where people can provide comment forms as well as specific testimony at those public hearings. The comments have to be submitted in written form or in oral testimony in order to be included in the public comment period per NEPA rule. And again, all of this work will be captured as we move forward. So next slide. So whereas the draft environmental impact statement defines the technical analysis on the different elements for the action that we are proposing, the final takes that to the next step. The final considers all the comments that were received on that draft and defines those comments related to specific actions and addresses those comments. It will refine the modified LPA in response to those comments and other design considerations, including work that we're doing with you as we continue to move forward. It's going to update and correct, augment environmental impact and benefits based on comments that we receive, as well as additional regulatory compliance activities and findings that are going to be wrapped into our NEPA document. It is also going to commit to specific mitigation, part of which was identified, if there's comments received, and any further definition that we received through the NEPA process will be incorporated into that FEIS. Currently, the program is working to issue a combined supplemental final environmental impact statement and record of decision. That record of decision is issued by our lead federal agencies. So Federal Highways and Federal Transit Administration will be issuing a modified record of decision based upon the previous record of decision that was issued. And it will be focused on the alternative that's selected that's going to advance to further design and considerations. So our goal for the combined supplemental final EIS and record of decision is to have that issued by summer of 2024. So, all of the substance that Administrator Johnson talked about and the graphics and timelines is leading us to getting done with our NEPA process in about a 2-year time frame here. Next slide. It's important to recognize that there's a number of large elements of our NEPA analysis, and we've developed some specific regulatory milestones. So it's a bit of summary for the NEPA stuff. Supplemental draft by summer of 2023. The public comment period will then start. At that same time, the combined FEIS and ROD will be issued in summer of 2024. And then the large parts of the federal decisions that have to play into that include Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. That requires that we work with all consulting parties to develop a programmatic agreement and to define mitigation for impacts to historic and cultural resources. We're working diligently to advance that, and we hope, and our goal is to have that done in early 2024 and incorporate elements of that into our NEPA analysis as we finalize NEPA. There are specific impacts to endangered species through the Endangered Species Act, and Federal Highways and FTA will be doing a specific consultation with the National Marine Fisheries Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and we hope to have a biological opinion from National Marine Fisheries Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service by mid-2024. And then we also have some long-range permits. We've talked about the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard, we hope to get a bridge permit by late 2025, early 2026. We also will be working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that maintains navigation underneath the bridge, and also looks at specific impacts to wetlands. And so we will have permits from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers late 2025, early 2026 for wetlands, and then impacts to our navigation channel and levee alterations late 2025, early 2026. I know that's a lot of technical information. This is important elements of the NEPA process that have to be brought in and talk about how this all fits together. And that's why we're sharing these regulatory milestones as well. Next slide, please. I think that's it. That is it. So if there are any specific questions on the process or any elements of that, more than happy to entertain those questions.
I'd like to just make a quick comment before you jump into questions. As part of our the Chapter 6 of the NEPA document consultation, we have been having intense meetings with tribal governments. ODOT just this week hosted a tribal summit. Our team has been visiting different tribes. We were in Eastern Washington visiting the Yakima. So that is also one of the key things that to move this program forward is our consultation with the tribal governments.
Thank you, Administrator Johnson. I see a couple of hands raised. Commissioner Hardesty?
Oh, I don't think I was first, but I guess whoever was first put their hand down.
CAG co-chair Lynn Valenter was first. She took her hand down, then yours ended up being first. And so she re-raised her hand. And I also acknowledge that Eric has raised his. So go ahead.
Okay, I didn't want to jump the line. First, let me say my head's about to explode with the amount of information that I've just acquired. But your passion for this work comes through even in the most bureaucratic process that you're trying to explain to us. And so I am very grateful that you love this stuff, because that's the only way you could keep our attention for this period of time.
Thanks for
Having
that.
said that, this is an absolutely critical time, because, as you know, a lot of information will be feeding into this process. And for me, I saw the summer of 2023 is when we're going to be engaging the public more proactively in a draft. I may have missed the part where you told me when the first initial draft would be available and when we as the IBR executive committee would have access to that.
Yeah, thanks for that. So Commissioner Hardy, I really appreciate that. Sorry to be such a NEPA nerd, but I'm glad it can rub off and help people through this process. So our initial NEPA document, the draft, will be available at the same time that the public comment period opens. So we're targeting early summer 2023. The specific elements that are leading into, how do we connect these pieces are going to be discussed and advanced in conversations with our transportation partners. It's one of those weird things where the analysis, the technical environmental analysis goes public at the time that it is completed and open for public comment. We're going to have, conversations as it relates to specific regulatory data and regulatory reviews with the different partners that we have and talk specific issues, but the overall entire document is not going to be available for further conversation until we get to that specific comment period.
Thank you, Chris. That's really helpful. And I guess the next question is, clearly there are a lot of competing interests. Even with our own jurisdictional partners, right? And I've never been through this process, at least on this side of the table. And so what do you need from me to actually prepare my colleagues as we start this process? Because I would imagine lobbying will be hot and heavy across the board for different interests in this particular development. So what would be most, and how do we make sure that we're not springing things on our colleagues at the last minute, that we have a process to keep them informed, keep us informed, so that we can keep them informed, so that, the lobbying that will happen is kept to a reasonable level.
I appreciate that. Yeah, please, Greg,
Chris,
go ahead and take it.
I can take that question. So it is our plan and our goal to meet with this group and keep this group informed, but also do outreach to partner boards and councils as more information is developed, to keep everyone in the region up to speed on where things are at. So we will work with you and the other partners for presentations before City Council, before Vancouver City Council and other boards associated with the partner groups.
Thank you, Greg. I certainly appreciate that. And I would love to work with you, because I think we could use work session times much more effectively, because some info we share well in advance, and we spend a lot of time talking about things people already know. So I want to make sure that when we schedule this time with full boards and commissions, that we are actually giving them an opportunity to get their questions answered in that process. I felt that's something we could have done better the last time. And I'm going to be a stickler about, is this necessary? Right? Is this information necessary for us to continue to move the process forward? So just want to put that out there.
Understood. We're looking at probably February that we will start an intensive outreach to individuals and to boards and councils. So we'll make sure it is coordinated and once again that we're bringing relevant information for folks to see and understand.
Just be mindful that some of us will be studying our budget processes during that time. So again, it would be helpful for you to work with us to figure out what the appropriate timeline would be, right? Because we're going to run up against the same kind of deadlines. All of us have budget hearings and other processes. So for me, having a calendar early is going to help me be as helpful as I can be to help us continue to move this process forward.
Understood.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Chris, was there anything that you'd like to add?
I was going to make a joke that, I'm kept in my NEPA corral, and it is a team effort. And Millicent has already told us that she's going to need us a lot, and so we will be back, and we will be reaching out, through this process and individually. So, yeah, thanks, Millicent.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty and Greg, for your response. CAG Co-Chair Lynn Valenter.
Hi. Thank you for that information. And it really just calls a bigger question that I think we all know, but I'm not sure I had seen in that concrete of a form. Previously, we had hoped to be in construction in 2025. Looking at this schedule, it appears that that's on the far side of unlikely. And so Greg, could you speak to, unless if we can do some activity prior to the permitting, but I will also just note that 1.5-year permit after the decision is truly extraordinary. So that's a comment apropos of nothing, and I don't need a response, but I would appreciate a response to the impact to the overall schedule. Thank you.
So right now we are still on schedule. What the late 2025, early 2026 is the contract for the big bridge construction. There's a lot of preliminary work that we think will have to go on in front of that. So that work will probably, you will see signage, equipment, and things of that nature in 2025. But for the big work to start, that is more than likely a 2026, late 2025, early 2026, as we have timeframes to get contracts out and to get contractors lined up and up to speed to be out there. Some of this will be potentially design, build, or CMGC delivery methods. So some of that will also determine when you will see dirt flying on the big bridge. So there will be work that you will see, we believe, in 2025.
Thank you. I see Eric Holmes' hand is raised. Eric.
There we go. Thanks, Millicent. Building on the question Lynn posed, because that was the same one I had about the overall schedule, that there are some unique potential mitigation issues on the Washington side of the river that are directly related to the Coast Guard permitting. And just would be, and maybe this is an offline, Greg, we can talk about, but understanding how the kind of staging work that you described as far as early construction happening in 2025 meshes with ultimately settling the bridge permit from the Coast Guard issue when we do have those pretty unique on the ground business impacts upstream.
So we are We are having some preliminary conversations. That's a follow-up to conversations that were had during CRC with several of the businesses that are impacted by bridge height. So those conversations will be ongoing, and we will make sure that there is nothing that we do that will inhibit their ability to ship goods and through the bridge corridor. So it's something that we will be talking to them about in an in-depth way in 2023 as we are setting up the conversation. Once again, Ray Mabey and Frank Green, the deputy administrators, will be leading those conversations, and we will be bringing this body up to speed as we can on things that are not part of a confidential discussion.
So just to confirm, it sounds like you anticipate having all of the necessary, I'm using the word mitigation, but basically a path forward to address the interests of those industrial maritime-based businesses upstream of the bridge well in advance of finalizing the Coast Guard permit there in late 25, early 26.
We anticipate before we have a record of decision to have those issues resolved. So
Great.
This 2-year time period, we believe that we will have those issues settled.
Great. Thank you. And if Vancouver can be of assistance in any way, let us know.
Will do.
All right. Are there any other questions?
Again, Eric, I just don't know how you could make this stuff sound so fabulous. So thank you. I mean, Chris, you just made this sound like the best thing since sliced bread, but I know better.
And Chris, the world needs NEPA nerds, so don't apologize.
Well, I don't know about that, but that's another conversation.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your attention to that portion of the agenda, and Chris, for your presentation. As has been identified, we're looking forward to continuing to engage around what it means and where you'll have the opportunity to both provide input and get further exposition on what the team is doing and what the process looks like. So a lot of work is being done by a lot of well-trained and well-experienced professionals. And so I'm excited about continuing to engage in the process. All right, so we've finished the primary points, primary presentations for our meeting today. We are going to move into public comment. I believe we may have a couple of people who are waiting to offer either insights or to ask questions. I'm going to read through the instructions for public input, as I always do. There will be an opportunity to provide brief public input in the meeting today. To submit input after the meeting, email comments to info@interstatebridge.org with ESG Public Comment in the subject line. Or you can call 888-503-6735 and state ESG Public Comment in your message. Instructions are as follows. To make a verbal comment, if you've joined by Zoom, click raise hand. I do see several hands raised. If you've joined by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. The facilitator will call on participants. You will receive an unmute request. Please accept it. If you are commenting by phone, dial *6 to unmute. Please provide your name and affiliation. And attendees will be allocated up to 2 minutes for public comment, depending on the number of commenters, up to a total of 10 minutes. If we run out of time and you've not had a chance to speak, you can still provide comments after the meeting. Additional instructions: to submit a comment after the meeting, please fill out the comment form on the program website or email comments to info@interstatebridge.org with ESG Public Comment in the subject line. Or you can call 888-503-6735 and state ESG Public Comment in your message. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to ESG members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of their next meeting. All comments are posted on the IBR website. So I'm going to ask that Brent help to facilitate this portion of the meeting by calling on those who've asked to provide comment. Brent.
And first up is Karen Gibson.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much. I just wanted to mention that on October 13th at 7 p.m. at the Vancouver Housing Authority at 2500 Main Street, the Arnada Neighborhood Association will be holding their next meeting. As you know, Arnada Neighborhood is within the program area and sits directly next to Interstate 5 between the Fourth Plain and Middle Plain interchanges. We certainly would encourage you to please come to our meeting and hear about our questions and concerns, as IBR will already be in attendance doing a presentation. And I'd just like to read something from the WSDOT right-of-way manual dated September 2020 under Chapter 6 Acquisition, Section 6-1.2 Rules, Section B, Just Compensation. Quote, in determining just compensation, any decrease or increase in the market value prior to the date of valuation caused by the project itself or by the likelihood that the property would be acquired for said project will be disregarded. We'd certainly like to have a further discussion at our meeting on October 13th about what that means for the folks who live in our Arnada neighborhood who received survey letters both in October of 2021, June of 2022, and had their homes surveyed with pictures and everything on June 9th of 2022. So I encourage you to please come to the meeting, have an open conversation with us, and let's talk about what this project means for our little neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gibson. Our next commenter, or yes, commenter.
John Lay.
Good morning, John Lee, Clark County. Your slide says your voice is important. We want to hear from you. I don't know whether to laugh or cry about that. Sadly and frustratingly, you continue to ignore the people and their desires for this entire project. Overwhelmingly, the top priority from everybody on both sides of the river is to save time and reduce traffic congestion. Supposedly 70% of the people, that is their number one priority. And in Southwest Washington, it's 78% of the people. Yet your proposed solution does none of that. Unbelievably, travel times from Salmon Creek to the Fremont Bridge will double by 2045, according to your own numbers. Furthermore, the amount of vehicles stuck in congested traffic will double, where again, by 2045, half of rush hour traffic will travel 0 to 20 miles an hour. That is absolutely ignoring the whole purpose of this project, which is to increase traffic flow and reduce traffic congestion. You're ignoring the people on tolling. Overwhelmingly, people do not want tolls. Southwest Washington citizens have said no. Furthermore, Roy Rogers of Washington County and Paul Savas of Clackamas County are saying no to tolling, in addition to the entire Clark County Council. The U.S. Coast Guard is saying we need a bridge with unlimited capacity so that our marine traffic can ship their goods, and you appear to be ignoring that, preferring a solution that taps the taxpayer's pocket for mitigation. Again, we need a solution that reduces traffic congestion and delivers to the people what they want, and that is reducing traffic congestion and saving time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Our next commenter.
Chris Smith. Chris, if you're there.
Get a few more seconds.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Chris Smith appearing on behalf of the Just Crossing Alliance, and a reminder that the Alliance is seeking the most sustainable and equitable outcomes possible from this project. We are seeking a successful project because we want to see the active transportation and transit connections get made across the river as part of a regional climate strategy. I'd like to talk a little bit about how the public comment period will work once the draft supplemental EIS is published. We have been through a few of these. We know how this process works. And what we're likely to see is hundreds, if not thousands of pages of documents dropped for the public to read, and then immediately starting a countdown clock for how long we have to comment. So my request, which I hope that this body might endorse, is that the documents be published. We have 30 days to read them and understand them, and then the public comment period will start after that reading period. That would greatly facilitate the public's ability to participate in this process in a meaningful way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any additional commenters, Brent?
Not at this time.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll now move on to just a recap of things that we've heard and to briefly discuss the schedule for the next series of meetings. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we are changing the frequency of the ESG meetings because of the difference in the type of work that the team is doing and that we'll need for you to provide input on. So we needed to move with a greater sense of urgency as we marched toward the LPA. Now we're there. It's not that we're slowing down as much as it's a different pace because of the different type of work. So if we can go on to the next slide, I wanted to mention we're looking at every other month, roughly, depending on what's happening in that month. And so while we would have said third or fourth Thursday in November, because of the Thanksgiving holiday, we're looking at a date after that to ensure that we're not imposing upon people's time, and especially as we're all coming out of a phase when we weren't able to get together with family and friends, and now that there's greater flexibility, we don't want to have anyone hamstrung based on the program schedule or feel like they're missing anything. So we're going to have that meeting in late November, early December. We're working with your schedulers to identify the best day to do that. It may not be on a Thursday, and it might not be in the morning. So we're working to find out the best dates and times that work for you, not just in the November, December timeframe, but in general. Thursday presents challenges for any number of folks on the call, and we don't want to continue to require all of the different adjustments that the folks are having to make consistently if we're able to find another date and time. So we're going to be working on that. And then, as we mentioned at the conclusion of the last presentation, we'll have the draft EIS come before you in February. That's what we're planning to do. We're going to stick to that because we recognize, as you've acknowledged, Commissioner Hardesty, that there's a lot of information and there's the need to, before we take any steps or actions, really have a thorough understanding of what's going on. And so we'll begin that introduction in February of next year. Now, I did want to go back to what we'll talk about in the November-December meeting, and Administrator Johnson mentioned it in his comments. We'll be talking about the cost and the estimates for the cost of the program. And then we're going to be talking about the community benefits agreement. That will not be the first time we'll talk about it, but that will be the first time that we'll be able to publicly acknowledge some of the work and discuss the plans and the ways that we want for ESG members to be intimately involved with ensuring the success of those efforts. So those are the next two meetings that we have planned. You can expect also then to see April, June, and August meeting dates come out. Again, we're wanting to align the meetings with the calendar for our work plan for the program and communicate that as early as we can with you so that you can set your calendars as well. We had a number of action items that we recognize we need to follow up with you on. While again, there was no vote that needed to be taken, we were given some very specific points of action, and the team will convene following this meeting to address those things and talk about how we'll respond to you as stakeholders in this process, and ensure that our schedule reflects the need to be mindful of how we're going to engage. So one of the things that Commissioner Hardesty raised was the cost specific to how potential solutions for electric vehicles will impact the bridge, and wanting to better understand the technology and the future planning for that, what that will look like and how it could potentially impact the bridge. There are a number of things that are going on as it relates to electrification or cars and electric cars, legislation coming out of several states, Washington at least being one of them, that's going to require that more people who are driving have electric vehicles, and that fuel-powered vehicles won't even be sold after a point. So hopefully that will also mean that electric vehicles will become more affordable. That's a whole different conversation, but wanting to acknowledge that that is something that is happening in places and spaces that we're working, and things that we need to consider. We also know that there are concerns around Coast Guard. There are concerns around schedule, and we'll continue to work with you and with the technical staff and program management staff to ensure that we're communicating about the schedule and talking about how, in fact, we will be marching toward 2025 in meaningful and impactful ways, and preparing not just the larger contractors, but also those smaller firms to be prepared to take on the work that's going to be available to them. We have a few other points as well. I spilled coffee on some of the notes, and so hopefully when I go back and review this to provide the minutes, I'll be able to. The dog literally right there did not eat my homework, but the coffee did ruin my writing. So we'll be able to capture that and share that with you in the coming week or so with specific actions. So thank you for your time. I'm going to now defer to Greg for any final comments. As I've shared in the past, my father was a Methodist minister, and I know that the benediction should be given by that person who's in charge, and the last words belong to him. So turning it over to you, Greg, take it away.
I feel honored. So we are in a new phase. There will be a lot of work going on behind the scenes. We will be continuing to utilize the intergovernmental agreements that have allowed your staff to work on the project and be compensated for it. So we will continue that work, and having folks doing over-the-shoulder reviews of work we are doing, even though we may be meeting with this body on a less frequent basis. We will be ready to meet any desire this body has to meet more frequently if it is so desired. But it's going to be a lot of work going on, a lot of analysis to get us to that draft supplemental. So we will be keeping you informed and up to date, whether it's in this meeting or reaching out individually to let you know where things are at. So thank you for your help and attention, and we look forward to seeing you in late November, early December.
Thanks so much, Greg. Thank you, everyone. It is 11:33, and this meeting is